Hey, it's Enigma Hood here. I want to talk about war, conflict, and whether or not it's possible for humanity to eliminate war and live together in peace. Throughout the history of mankind, we have always been at war with each other. Why, though? Why are we always fighting each other? Well, that's a very complex problem. Basically, there are a number of factors involved. We fight for lots of different reasons: for self-defense, to get something that we want, to exert power, to collect resources, or because of hate. The thing I want to talk about right now is the hate factor. We will hate anything that is different. Anything that separates us from them. That is a significant factor in determining strife, or reasons for strife. Like, for example, in India, there is a divisive factor which separates people there, even though they all look the same, more or less. Religion, Hindus and Muslims. These people look exactly the same, but religion is a divisive factor, which is separating the people there into different groups, Hindus and Muslims, and therefore, because of that insignificant difference, that is sufficient reason enough to hate someone else. So we will hate each other for any reason, as long as it's something to separate us, whether it's religion, race, sexual orientation, or whatever else. Even different countries which may be ideologically similar, but as long as they're different countries, they'll fight each other. Look at Europe. It has been fighting against each other for centuries, constantly at war, and only recently have they been kind of cooperating and trying to form this union, the European Union, because of what? NAFTA. Because of America and the organization and the union that it created. United States of America is a huge power, and Europe individually, all the different states in Europe individually cannot hope to challenge America, but as a whole, they are a very dominant force. So that's the only reason why they're finally getting along. Now, as for in the future, can we eliminate war? I would say no. It's not possible for one basic reason. That's because we're alive. Anything that is alive is constantly struggling to survive. You can't have life without death. Death is a fundamental aspect of any life form, and in order to live, a life form must fight for for whatever reason it wants to survive. That's the one thing all life forms have in common. They all want to survive for whatever reason. Even a plant. I mean, we can't go and look at a plant and wonder why it wants to be alive. All we know is that it is struggling to stay alive. So, anything that is alive has to have a concept of either offense, defense, or both. If you don't believe me, I can point out a few examples. Something as simple as the cell membrane on a microorganism. That is a concept of defense. It's a sense of its boundaries. Viruses that mutate. That is a way of defending itself against an immune system, which is also another defense. Immune system is a defense. A virus's ability to mutate and to try and fool the immune system, and by mutating into the same virus, but something that the immune system does not recognize, is a form of defense as well. The virus is not trying to make us sick. It wants to survive. For whatever reason, it wants to survive. A tree's bark, it's a form of defense. A bush's thorns, a form of defense. A rabbit's ears and increased speed and agility, it's a form of defense. So all life forms, every life form that's alive, has some kind of sense of defense or attack in order to survive. And if it loses this, then it goes extinct. So this logic, this constant struggle for survival, of course applies to human beings as well, except we fight for reasons not not limited to just survival, but also in addition to all the reasons I mentioned before, hatred is a huge reason. So, therefore, is it possible to eliminate war based on the sense of self-defense? No, because if we do, then something somehow will make us go extinct eventually. But is it possible to at least eliminate hatred? Well, that depends a lot on us. About where our evolution is going to take us, whether we're going to evolve or not, and whatever we evolve into, whether we can eliminate hatred with that, and if eliminating hatred is actually a good thing. Remember, we do have hate as a result of evolution. It's just a question of whether or not it's helping us now. It helped us before when we were primitives running around in the jungle or in the savannah trying to fight for our lives. That was a self-defense mechanism, and it was a result of evolution. However, is it something that's desirable now? That I don't know. I would lean towards no, it's not. It's not a desirable characteristic to have anymore. I think it's antiquated, and we don't need it. But what do I know? So that's how that works. As for whatever we're going to evolve into, some people aren't really sure if we are evolving. I would say that there are a few factors that are kind of moving against our own natural evolution. We are still subjected to mutations, of course, but we're not as subjected to things like natural selection. Because we have modern medicine, technology to protect us. According to natural selection, we should have all died during the winter, because our bodies are not designed for cold environments. They're designed for warm, tropical environments. But our technology saves us from that, so we're not as subjected to natural selection as much. There's a massive amounts of gene flow. You can hop in an airplane and travel to Japan and have sex with someone over there and reproduce and produce offspring, of course. But that, there's nothing wrong with that, of course, but that is gene flow, and that inhibits speciation. The groups are no longer isolated. But, then again, okay, these are two things that are inhibiting evolution. There are four factors or mechanisms of evolution: mutation, natural selection, gene flow, and genetic drift. So we have at least two mechanisms that are working against speciation. But maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe we will evolve ourselves, and whatever we evolve ourselves into, and it's certainly possible with genetic engineering or through some other technology. It doesn't even have to be organic, whatever we evolve into. But whatever we do decide to go, what direction we go in, we have to ask that question of, is it possible to eliminate hatred? Because that will be a significant factor in determining whether or not our species will survive. Nuclear weapons are probably the biggest threat to our existence currently. There's nothing really natural phenomena that really threatens our existence, which is usually the cause of extinction for other animals. The biggest threat to us is ourselves, in the form of nuclear weapons. Now, think about it. Homo sapiens, individually, have existed on this planet for 200,000 to 300,000 years. That's really not that long, if you compare it to other animals. Sharks have been around since the time of the dinosaurs. Mosquitoes have been around even longer. Birds have been around since the time of the dinosaurs. Just these animals have existed for so long. And Homo sapiens have only been here for 200,000, 300,000 years. And within that period of time, we have developed nuclear weapons about 60 years ago, a little over 60 years ago. And we used them. And then since then, we have come close to nuclear war at least 2 or 3 times. 2 or 3 times we came close to nuclear war in 60 years. So the question is, how much longer are we going to last?